Hey, what's up? So the Star Wars live action TV shows. I wanted to give you my pick of the best so far. So we've had Ahsoka, we've had The Mandalorian, we've had the Book of Boba Fett, we've had Andor, and we've had Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I wanted to give you my top, my ranking. Which of the shows is my favorite and which of the shows is my least favorite. And I don't mean that I hated any one of them. I enjoyed all of them. I enjoyed watching all of them. And I believe all of them had something different to offer. And they're pretty enjoyable, especially with the look. I think the production value is high and they made an effort to create something that was actually good. And so let's get into it. So the last one, at number 5, we have Obi-Wan Kenobi. And unfortunately, Obi-Wan is one of those characters that I never got to, like intimately. Yes, I was fascinated with the opportunity of having that Obi-Wan and Anakin confrontation. That could have been awesome. We had an opportunity to see like Anakin or Darth Vader in his prime. We had an opportunity to see Star Wars fully explore Darth Vader in a very different way. But as usual, they introduced new characters and paid attention to more characters that I was personally never interested in. They tried to push different characters that were not really connected to Darth Vader and Anakin. I would have preferred to see more of Darth Vader and Anakin. I would just prefer to see the drama between the three outside all these other characters that they tried to introduce to push the story forward. That's why for me, I feel that was the weakest of all the Star Wars live action. After that, we have now I love this because of one thing, because it followed the structure of Mandalorian. That is the Book of Boba Fett. First of all, the first 2 opening episodes were pretty intense. They were pretty interesting. Yes, at some point it lost its plot, especially with just how they turned Boba Fett into this all goody two-shoe character. Yet we know that he's supposed to be one of the deadliest assassin in the Star Wars universe. Yet they just try to make him like a good leader within a community. He's supposed to be badass. So yes, I understand that. But still, they were able to give us, things that I've never really been used to in terms of the Star Wars universe, with some huge creatures, with some really cool fight scenes, and a cool character that unfortunately they did nothing with. I wish they would have explored more with this particular character. I wish they would have done more with this particular character, but they didn't. But generally, I like the fact that they were able to take us to Boba Fett after the incident, then go through those communities and how he got some of the weapon that he had. That community of those creatures that actually rescued him, and how he was able to be accepted within that community, and what happened to the community and how he got revenge. That for me was an interesting story. So it had its own good, but it had a lot of also things that pushed it down. But generally, it was far more enjoyable than Obi-Wan Kenobi. It had more intrigue, it was well structured, and I like the idea that at some point we had to deal with flashbacks, and some of how he was able to heal was also explained. I'm a simple guy. Those simple things actually make sense to me. So at number 3, no offense, I just watched it. I absolutely enjoyed it. Ahsoka. Ahsoka is awesome. It looks beautiful. I love the art. I love the world. I love how everything looks. I love how colorful everything feels. Not colorful, I'm sorry, how it's composed, how the scenes are composed. As I said, the production quality in this Star Wars property is pretty awesome. They pay a lot of attention to details, and in this show, you can actually tell that there was an artist who was in command of this. These people understand art. They understand that yes, you can have a good story, but you also need a beautiful picture. You need a good picture. You need something that you can just stare at, or you can pose, print, and hang on the wall of your house. So Ahsoka looks good. The scale play for me was the biggest selling point. I love how they're able to make you understand how big something is. All through Star Wars, you've had moments whereby you looked at craft and you go like, wow, that's huge. But this time we got to understand like how big an engine can be, the relationship between the people and some of, you know, the crafts. For me, that was like one of my favorite point. Ray Stevenson, unfortunately, the guy passed away, but he makes for an interesting looking character, a villain. He was a far more interesting villain than Thrawn. But unfortunately, what happened to him happened. I don't know what they're going to do with the show. What made it come to number 3 is just the performances from AHSOKA and Sabine. I don't think Sabine was written poorly. I have nothing against the actor. The actor did a fantastic job with what she had. But the relationship between Sabine and AHSOKA did not feel like a good relationship. It just didn't feel natural. There was no chemistry. And to be honest, for me, it felt like they were shooting in different rooms and everything was brought together, was composed later on in post-production. It feels like they were not in the same room while they were shooting those scenes. Why? Because of the gaps during their conversation. Now, Anakin shows up in the show, but they still don't do enough with him. They make him more of a ghost. And so I was like, yeah, you're still teasing. You know, Darth Vader is like the big tease. It's like the dangling carrot in the Star Wars universe. You know, if anything Star Wars is created, anything that comes from Star Wars, if you just tease in a trailer that, oh, we are going to have Anakin or Darth Vader in it somewhere, people will get excited, people will get into it, but they still don't do enough with that character. The same that they did with Obi-Wan Kenobi. They just don't, I don't know, they figured how to do Darth Vader really, really well. If you can remember, there's a comic book I came across that did an Anakin, a Darth Vader story. Just a simple Darth Vader story. He's trapped in a planet, and that planet has a lot of creatures. And so we just follow him trying to survive. That for me was... So in AHSOKA, he was again used to bait us. I feel that he was used to bait most of the people, the character of Anakin, but he did a very good performance. So what weighed down this show was the fact that the show felt like it was not going anywhere. It did not feel complete. Season 1 did not feel complete. It felt like it was the middle of something bigger. So if you watch season 1, you would not feel like you've watched a complete story, because where the story begins, it's the same place where it ends. With AHSOKA and Sabine were looking for Thrawn and Ezra, so they go into this other galaxy. But when they go there, they get trapped there, and then Ezra and Thrawn go to the galaxy that AHSOKA and Sabine were in. So they just switch the parts. So we are back to zero by the end of the show. So for me, it lacked that, you know, I've watched a season and I'm satisfied with it. We can go on to something else. The door is open for season 2. So this feels like, oh, here we are still going to continue the story, so bear with us. We are sorry for leaving you hanging, but yes, we are going somewhere else with this story. I couldn't buy that. I felt that they were just stringing us along. So that's why AHSOKA takes the 3rd place. But it was a very strong episode. My favorite episodes were episode 5, 6, and episode 8. In terms of direction, in terms of picture quality, in terms of just depicting scale in a show. Because some of those episodes feel like movies. Especially with episode 8, it's very well done. And at number 2 is, of course, I think we all saw it coming. If you're a true Star Wars fan and you wanted to see something different, so you obviously know which is my episode 2 choice. And it's, yes, Andor. Andor presented a different tone in the Star Wars universe. It was a bit grittier. It felt more grounded. It felt like we were... This felt like a normal person living in a universe where Star Wars exists. So you just happen to be experiencing Star Wars as a normal person. So that ability to ground everything and make everything feel normal, and make crafts feel like real things, and make robots feel natural, and make all these over-the-top environments and crafts and incidences feel really grounded, feel like they're affecting the normal people, for me sold this show. I love the show. I love how it looks. I love the grittiness of it. I love just how the cinematography, just how real everything feels. So I absolutely love this. It's one of those shows I was like, by the end of it all, I was like, yes, they had a story. They established that story. It works very well. I don't need to see season 2 I actually don't need to see season 2 because, yes, they left the door open, but it has its own complete feeling. Apart from that, the performances were the most interesting. We don't have a very clean character. Our main character is not a good character. He's not your typical Star Wars hero. He has his own issues, and so we see how conflicted he is. We see how he switches from being just a good guy and sometimes just doing some things out of necessity. And I love the fact that they were able to take the Star Wars universe in that direction. So that's why it's number 2. And at number 1, we go back to the OG, the first, I think we all know it, yeah, it's the Mandalorian. It's the OG, the one that started it all, the one that is actually the blueprint. Because if you look at Andor, if you look at AHSOKA, if you look at Book of Boba Fett, and if you look at Obi-Wan Kenobi, they follow that formula in terms of just visual storytelling. They borrow a lot of visual language from, yes, you guessed it right, the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is perfect. It gave us everything we needed, except for season 3. Season 3, apart from the last episode, the last 2 episodes, it was okay. But season 1 and 2, they were perfect. You know, Grogu is a perfect character. Everyone loves Grogu. Everyone loves the Mandalorian. We love the fact, and here's the thing, and here's the one thing that I loved about the Mandalorian. As much as each episode was tied to the other, after each episode you felt satisfied. You felt like you watched an independent episode. It didn't feel the need to string itself to the other episode. And so going into it, you could comfortably watch one episode randomly at any time you want without feeling like it's connected to the next episode. So you get fulfilled with just a single episode, and then you get fulfilled by a single season. So they create a season whereby the story ends and then they keep the door open for the next show. In terms of direction, it's competently directed. Each episode, not well all of them, but most of the episodes are competently directed. They do one of the most important things. They don't try to go into preaching anything. They just create good stories. They just tell good Star Wars stories. And basically, Mandalorian is badass. We see him being vulnerable. We see him being a badass. He has a complete arc whereby you see him move from his relationship with Grogu at the beginning and his relationship with Grogu at the end. Throughout the show, we meet different kind of characters. We go to different planets. We get to see different characters. You get to experience Bill Burr, if you remember, something that is absolutely, I was like, what? We have Bill Burr in this? And then he was given an arc, and then he was made to be this, you know. So Mandalorian for me was the perfect Star Wars story. Apart from that, the last season, whereby they tried to push down our throats new Mandalorian characters that we are never used to. You know, you don't randomly introduce characters and say that, oh, so now this is the person, yet we've been following this other person. It doesn't really make sense because you did not give her enough time for us to either like her or hate her. You didn't give her time to grow. And can we just, apart from all that, can we just give respect to this show because of one thing that they did perfectly? This character, the overall villain. If there was a villain that was well constructed, for me it's this character, because they were able to push him through all the seasons and always, you know, elevate him with each coming episode and just make for a villain that we like. Perfect casting, a character that we like, although he's always a villain in everywhere that he appears, but they gave us a villain that we could actually look forward to. You know that at some point it's going to be connected to that character. Even when the last season was happening, everyone was going like, oh, it might be that particular character, and it turns out to be him, and he's a very badass character. He has a very badass scene. So that's some of the things that I appreciate about the Mandalorian. And when you think about it, that show had one of the best soundtracks, theme song out of all the Star Wars property. I mean, there's the OG Star Wars theme we all know and recognize, but outside that, the Mandalorian had one of the most recognizable and coolest and badass soundtrack I've had so far from the Star Wars property. Actually, in the live action shows, That one has the most memorable and one of the best. Even if you were to hear it whatever in the corner of wherever you are, and you hear that soundtrack, you would immediately know that that's the Mandalorian. So that is one of the things that made it unique. The other thing, a very small detail that most shows don't do, and I did not see it being done by any other show or TV or whatever. They show the concept art during the credits. You know why that's important? It's like literally showing you that we took the time to create concept art for this show. Yes, you are blown away by the looks, but then now they show you the concept art. And then now you can see the relationship between what they were thinking and what they were able to bring. And strangely enough, they were able to get closer to the concept art than to whatever the studio would suggest. So those small details for me made Mandalorian the best show. And it's still the best show in the Star Wars universe in terms of just streaming and a TV show. So basically that's my list. That's what I thought about the Star Wars shows. Mandalorian is king. Obi-Wan Kenobi is, it's down there. I'm not saying these shows are bad. You may have a different opinion. You may have a different view. So the comment section is open. You can just write all what you think about the Star Wars shows. Which is your favorite? If you want to say why, say why. If you don't want to say why, just keep it brief. Just say your number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. If you agree with me, say it. If you don't like the Mandalorian, say why. Most people say that Book of Boba Fett was the worst one. Why? So the comment sections are open. Please like and subscribe. I talked about AHSOKA, what I thought about season 1. I reviewed the whole season. I have my reviews over here. And basically that's it. Loki review is coming. Gen V review is coming. And so yeah, the creator review is coming. And so yeah, subscribe. But always remember to always watch what you enjoy and enjoy what you watch. I shall see you on the next one.